Ambassador Veltar adjusted his ceremonial robes as he entered the pristine halls of the Galactic Council. The crystalline structures of the Zephyrian homeworld gleamed with an ethereal light, a testament to their advanced civilization that had flourished for over 10 millennia. As the appointed speaker for the Coalition of Enlightened Species, Veltar carried himself with the dignity befitting a representative of the galaxy's most cultured races. The human delegation waited at the far end of the chamber, their crude metal chairs a stark contrast to the elegant bioluminescent seating that accommodated the other species. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat with her back straight, her dark eyes scanning the assembled representatives with what Veltar could only interpret as primitive alertness. Behind her stood two humans in what they called military dress uniforms, garments that seemed unnecessarily martial to the peaceful Zephyrian. "The motion before us today," Veltar began, his voice carrying the melodious tones that had made his species renowned diplomats, "concerns the application of the human species for membership in our esteemed coalition. While we acknowledge their technological progress, we must consider whether a species so recently emerged from barbarism can truly embrace our values of peace and enlightened governance." Chen's jaw tightened slightly, but she remained silent. Veltar had observed this human trait before, their tendency toward barely controlled aggression, even in diplomatic settings. Council Representative Thys of the Ethereal Collective rose gracefully, her translucent form shimmering. The human's history speaks for itself. Even in their brief spacefaring period, they have demonstrated an alarming propensity for violence. Their wars against the Krolix pirates, while successful, were conducted with a brutality that shocked civilized observers. "They obliterated entire pirate fleets," added Councillor Zexhai, his insectoid mandibles clicking disapproval. "No attempt at rehabilitation, no mercy for those who surrendered. Barbaric." Chen finally spoke, her voice steady despite the obvious tension in her shoulders. "The Krolix pirates had enslaved 17 species, murdered millions of civilians, and refused all diplomatic overtures. Our response was measured and effective." "Measured." Veltar's laugh was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You turned their capital ships into debris fields. You hunted down their leadership across 3 star systems. This is not the behavior of an enlightened species." The debate continued for hours, each coalition member adding their voice to the chorus of disapproval. The humans were too aggressive, too willing to resort to violence, too primitive in their thinking. Their application was formally rejected by a vote of 847 to 3. Chen stood slowly, gathering her materials. "Very well. We'll continue protecting our own borders and those who request our aid. The offer stands if you change your minds." Veltar watched the human delegation leave, feeling a mixture of pity and relief. The galaxy was safer with such barbaric tendencies contained to human space. That safety lasted exactly 18 months. The first reports came from the outer rim, entire star systems going dark, their communications simply ending. When the Coalition's finest scouts investigated, they found worlds stripped bare, their populations vanished, their cities reduced to geometric patterns of crystallized matter. The enemy called themselves the Devourers, and they moved through space like a plague of metal locusts. Their ships were vast, geometric nightmares that seemed to bend reality around them. They needed no planets to live on, no resources to sustain them beyond the complete consumption of everything they encountered. The Coalition's response was swift and coordinated. They deployed their most advanced vessels, crewed by the finest minds of their enlightened civilizations. The ships were marvels of technology, defensive barriers that could deflect any known weapon, sensors that could detect threats across entire solar systems, diplomatic AI systems programmed with the accumulated wisdom of 1,000 species. The Devourers destroyed the entire fleet in 4 hours. Veltar found himself in an emergency session of the Council, the pristine chambers now filled with the sharp scent of fear. Reports flooded in of Coalition worlds falling one after another. The enemy showed no interest in communication, no regard for surrender, no mercy for civilians. "Our defensive stations are useless," reported Admiral Kessera, her usually perfect plumage ruffled with stress. "Their weapons seem to phase through our shields as if they don't exist. Our most powerful energy weapons barely scratch their hulls." "What of the Nexus fleet?" someone asked desperately. "Gone. They made contact with a Devourer vanguard near Kepler 442. We received one transmission. They're in our minds." Then silence. Veltar felt his world crumbling around him. 10,000 years of peaceful evolution, of diplomatic solutions and enlightened governance, and it meant nothing against an enemy that simply didn't care about their sophisticated civilization. It was Counselor Thys who first spoke the unthinkable. Perhaps we should contact the humans. The chamber fell silent. After months of losing ground to an implacable enemy, the suggestion hung in the air like a lifeline made of thorns. They did defeat the Krolix, admitted Zexhai quietly. Thoroughly. Within 6 hours, a desperate transmission was sent to human space. Ambassador Chen's response was immediate. We'll help. No conditions, no demands for apologies. Just send us everything you know about these devourers. The human fleet that arrived at the Zephyrian homeworld was nothing like the elegant vessels of the Coalition. The ships were angular, aggressive-looking things bristling with weapons that seemed designed for one purpose only. Leading them was the UHSV Indomitable, a massive dreadnought that looked like it had been built specifically for war. Admiral Zhang materialized in the council chambers via hologram, his scarred face and gray hair telling the story of countless battles. We've analyzed your data. These devourers are tough, but they're not invincible. They're counting on psychological warfare, breaking your will to fight. That won't work on us. How can you be so confident? Veltar asked, ashamed of the hope creeping into his voice. Zhang's smile was cold as vacuum. Because we're the Barbarians, remember? We don't know when to quit. The human strategy was brutal in its simplicity. No elegant maneuvers, no attempts at diplomacy, just overwhelming firepower applied with mathematical precision. They turned every engagement into a close-range brawl, negating the Devourer's technological advantages through sheer relentless aggression. Where coalition forces had tried to preserve civilian populations and infrastructure, humans wrote off entire systems as acceptable losses if it meant stopping the enemy advance. Where coalition admirals had sought elegant solutions, human commanders embraced ugly victories. The tide turned at the Battle of Vega Prime. Admiral Zhang led a combined human coalition force in what could only be described as a calculated ramming attack against a Devourer supercarrier. The human ships absorbed horrendous casualties, but their sacrifice allowed coalition vessels to exploit the breach and destroy the enemy flagship. 6 months later, the last Devourer ship was destroyed in the ruins of their own forward base. The war was over. Veltar stood once again in the council chambers, but now they were scarred by battle damage, their perfect walls marked by the crude repairs that human engineers had implemented. Across from him, Admiral Zhang looked tired but satisfied. The Coalition owes humanity a debt we can never repay, Veltar said formally. Your barbaric methods saved us all. Zhang raised an eyebrow. Barbaric methods? No, Ambassador. That was just humans being human. We don't fight wars to feel good about ourselves, we fight them to win. As the ceremonies concluded and the humans prepared to return to their space, Veltar realized something that shook him to his core. Perhaps what they had called barbarism was simply the willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect what mattered. Perhaps their enlightened civilization had grown so refined that they had forgotten the fundamental truth that some enemies could only be stopped by force. The humans had never asked for gratitude, never demanded payment, never sought to lord their victory over the Coalition. They had simply done what needed to be done, then prepared to go home. Maybe, Veltar thought as he watched the human fleet depart. True civilization wasn't about avoiding violence at all costs. Maybe it was about knowing when violence was the only way to protect the innocent, and having the strength to bear that burden. The galaxy was safe again, protected by the species they had once called Barbarians.